Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It's my pleasure today to speak to General Ben Hodges. He is a retired United States Army officer, former commander of the United States Army in Europe, and he has also previously held a Pershing Chair in strategic studies at the Center of European Analysis. General Hodges, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for the privilege.
The first topic that I'd like to talk about, because it has probably been the most important piece of news to emerge from Romania in the past week, is the announced downsizing of the U.S. military presence in Romania. The Pentagon has informed both the Romanian government and NATO that it will be withdrawing troops, more specifically a brigade of the 101st Airborne Division. The Pentagon has tried to spin this as a positive development, saying that it will not affect in any way the security of Europe, and that it is a positive signal that Europe has assumed more responsibility for its own defense. We've also seen that the Republican leaders of the defense committees of the US Senate have criticized and announced their opposition. Meanwhile, similar measures have been announced for Bulgaria, Hungary, and Slovakia. This could not come at a worse time, in my opinion, after the recent violations by Russian drones and jets of NATO airspace. What is your read on this, and what message does this send Europe, and more importantly, NATO's adversaries?
So this is something that the Trump administration has been planning and actually talking about for quite some time, going back to the first Trump administration. I disagree with the analysis, but they have come to the conclusion that they could afford to reduce the American footprint in Romania as part of an overall reduction of U.S. troops, forces in Europe. I disagree with that conclusion, mainly because of the timing. The fact that Russia is fighting a war of aggression against Ukraine there on the Black Sea, on the European continent, and then also Russia's gray zone operations that they're conducting against European allies. It seems to me the worst possible time to announce a reduction of American presence in Romania. So I don't like the decision and I don't like the timing. And frankly, they did a terrible job of explaining it. This should have been something publicly explained well ahead of time. So getting the narrative right also is important. So I think these are three mistakes that were made. Having said all that, it is true that European allies have significantly increased capabilities along NATO's eastern flank. Particularly Romania has done a great job of improving its capabilities. And now you have French forces that are there. So I can, even if I don't like the outcome, I can understand how they could have decided that this was something that could be done. I mean, frankly, the administration is, while they have not yet formally announced their new national defense strategy, it's pretty clear that the number one priority for this administration is going to be the Western Hemisphere, and then the Indo-Pacific region, and then Europe. So I think this is kind of what we thought was going to happen. I just wish it wasn't.
How is this taken by NATO's adversaries, in particular Russia, because it's the primary actor concerned in this?
Well, of course, what Russia is looking to see is American commitment. That even if we may have a reduced amount of boots on the ground, if you will, is it still clear that the United States is committed to being an effective and reliable member of the alliance? I think that answer to that would be yes. The problem is if Russia thinks no, that they make a terrible miscalculation. But the Russians, of course, will also be looking to see what about Europe? Europe has so many advantages over Russia, but yet Europe seems to lack the political will and the self-confidence to use those advantages. If you add together the economies, the populations, the military, the defense industry, the technology of all of the nations of the EU, plus Norway, plus UK, plus Canada, it dwarfs Russia. So I don't understand why Europeans lack self-confidence and are always so worried about what Russia might do instead of demonstrating strength and unity so that Russia is worried about what Europe might do.
There is one notable country missing from this list of reduction in troops, and that is Poland. In fact, the Polish president did say the same day that this was announced for Romania that the US administration did not say anything about downsizing the US military presence in Poland. The temptation would be to say that the Polish president is a Trump ally and that is the reason why, but so is Viktor Orban. Do you think there is a specific reason why the Trump administration withdraws troops from some of the Eastern flag nations, but not from Poland?
I don't know. I would not be party to or have access to the specific discussions that went into the decision. They would have looked at risks, priorities, assets available. Where are the greatest risks of Russia doing something? These are the kind of things they would have considered, and also the ability of nations to defend themselves or with other allies. And so, I can only speculate about that process. I would not read into it that just because the president of Poland is seen as somehow a Trump ally, that's what would have driven the decision. I mean, certainly the prime minister of Poland is not seen as a Trump ally. And I think something like this, the commander of U.S. European Command, the commander of U.S. Army Europe, these are very good professional officers, and they would have done their best to carry out whatever the decision was by the civilian leadership, but in such a way that protects our shared interests the best.
What do you think should be Romania's reaction diplomatically and militarily? There has been an idea floated that the withdrawing of American troops should be replaced by troops from other European countries, perhaps France. Do you see that as realistic?
Well, of course, you have French troops already in Romania, and all American troops are not leaving. It's a reduction of what's there, but they're not all leaving. You still have NATO's Black Sea Air Policing mission right there. You've got the best army in the world, or in Europe. Ukraine is busy fighting, protecting Romania, and protecting Moldova. So I think that what should Romania's reaction be? Keep doing what you're doing, which is to continue to improve your ability to defend yourself. Conduct exercises to improve your ability to knock down Russian drones that are flying through Romanian airspace untouched, which to me is unbelievable. And also the leadership needs to explain to Romanian population, what the risks are, what the threats are, what we, Romania, are doing to address those things. Get society has to feel a part of the overall comprehensive defense of the nation as well.
How much would Romania and the Eastern flank security be affected if, God forbid, Russia does attack NATO after this reduction of US troops in Romania? Is it something that we should be concerned about?
Well, if the reduction, whenever it happens, sometime in the coming months, of 1,000 American soldiers, if that brings about the collapse of NATO's eastern flank, then we have bigger problems than just an American withdrawal. Look, we have more troops in Romania than almost anywhere else except Poland and Germany, and so I would not overreact to this. Romania has done a great job of improving its own defenses. As I've said at the beginning, I don't like the decision, and I don't like the way this has been handled in terms of a narrative. But the fact is, the Romanian armed forces are very good, and you have to continue exercising. You have to continue practicing. Keep working on air and missile defense. I don't think enough has been done in Romania to protect against an attack like what Ukraine sees every day. That would be my number one priority in Romania from a military standpoint, is practice air and missile defense against a threat like what Ukraine sees.
Let's talk a bit about the hybrid war. How do you see NATO's recent response to Russia's brazen violations of the alliance's airspace? We've seen attacks attacks, not really attacks, but violations in Estonia, Poland, Lithuania, Romania. Is Eastern Century enough? And what more do you believe should be done for deterrence?
So these are deliberate operations by the Russians, part of their gray zone operations. Not only the drones, but also the shadow fleet vessels that are unsafe and illegal and improperly registered, carrying Russian oil. Disinformation is certainly there in Romania. Had to deal with this before the last presidential election. Sabotage. All of these things are being done either directly or indirectly at the behest of the Kremlin. And the purpose is to distract all of us from supporting Ukraine by making us, by scaring populations, by putting pressure on governments to stop supporting Ukraine while Russia continues its war against Ukraine. So that's part of what's going on. And then, of course, the other part of it is they're testing defenses, finding out our response times, seeing, and really looking to see, do we have the will inside NATO countries to actually do what's necessary to defend ourselves. And right now, I think they probably are finding a lot of holes that we cannot muster the political will to inflict some sort of consequences on the Russians for what they're doing of shutting down airports. The Berlin airport just shut down again yesterday because of that. And we need to get serious about these, and there has to be some consequences for Russia every time this happens. And I think people worry too much about what Russia might do if Romania or Poland or Lithuania does something to inflict a consequence on the Kremlin.
Do you think Ukraine can have a role in this, in helping Europe defend against Russian incursions? The Ukrainian president has previously said that they are ready to assist in
Yeah, how
training.
embarrassing is this that Ukraine, which is fighting for its life, they are having to offer to help train us on how to defend against Russian drones. And I would not use the word incursions. That sounds almost accidental. These are operations, planned, deliberate violations of airspace. And we need to treat these things as Russian operations. And we need to recognize that Russia is at war with us, even if we wish it were not so. And to prevent it from becoming kinetic, we need to start punishing them now every time they violate airspace, every time they do something that damages infrastructure or breaks the law. There has to be consequences. And I'm just frustrated that our governments are not willing to use all the advantages they have to do that. But yes, I mean, the Ukrainians have offered to help train Polish and other air defenders how to deal with what they're doing. But my God, we've been watching it now for the last couple of years. Please tell me that in Romania, people are thinking through how would we defend if 20 or 30 drones were launched against, say, the port in Constanta.
About the Ukraine war, what is your analysis of the latest events? We know you've been optimistic about Ukraine being able to win this war. Is that still your assessment?
It is. But I've always said when I would talk about Ukraine's ability to win this war, which means push Russia back inside its own borders, was dependent on if we provided them with what they needed. Now, we have not provided them what they need because we, the United States and other countries, have never actually said it's our objective that Ukraine wins. And if you don't even say that, then you're not likely to have the right policies about providing what's needed. So that's the first thing is governments need to say that is because it is in our interest, this is not charity, it's in our interest that Ukraine defeats Russia. Therefore, we're going to give them everything we can to help them accomplish that because it's in our interest. I think that even without us doing that, it's clear that after 11 and a half years, with Russia having every advantage, they still only control about 20% of Ukraine. 20% and over 1 million casualties. That's incredible. The Great Black Sea Fleet, has a really cool name, but it's not a good navy. It's not even a much of a factor in the war now. The great Russian Air Force, with all their advantages, still has not been able to achieve air superiority over Ukraine, and they can't even destroy trains and convoys bringing equipment and ammunition from Poland into Ukraine. So all that the Russians can do is continue to push forward, push forward, push forward. At enormous cost to try and capture places like Pokrovsk and other towns that have been totally destroyed already. And of course, they'll continue attacking civilian targets and civilian infrastructure, murdering civilians in Ukraine because there's nothing else they can do. Their objective is to hope that we in the West finally get tired and quit. And then maybe they think they can eventually overwhelm Ukraine. I don't think that's very likely. On the other hand, Ukrainians have figured out that they can destroy Russia's oil and gas infrastructure. Russia is so big, which used to be a strength for it, it now is so big that it cannot protect all of its oil and gas infrastructure, but the Ukrainians are able to reach out and hit it. And so I think if they are able to continue this and in fact increase it, then it will be very difficult for Russia in the coming year to pay for this war when they can no longer export oil to China and India.
In terms of the U.S. assistance being obviously smaller since this administration has taken office, do you think this has hampered Ukraine, and how has it helped Russia?
Well, first of all, I think the Ukrainians know that the United States is not a reliable source of capabilities anymore, unfortunately. I heard a senior former Ukrainian official say the other day that, for them, if they get something from the U.S., it's like it's a bonus. So they have, I think they stopped having confidence because the president would say this, and then the American president, and then he would change his mind. And Tomahawk is just the latest example, but it's not only that. So I think Ukrainians are depending on their European allies in Canada to help and other partners. And this is the best investment for European countries. If you want to avoid a war with Russia, make sure that Ukraine is successful in defeating Russia.
You've mentioned it as well. Do you believe this chaotic behavior from the American administration, constantly switching from berating Ukraine to praising Ukraine, from taunting Russia to praising Russia, do you think it will continue, or is Trump likely to sell on being fully pro-Ukraine or pro-Russia?
No, I think he's going to. He still has this idea that somehow U.S. and Russia can do business together, and that the Russians really do want to get into business with the United States. And the Trump administration, unfortunately, their approach has been doomed from the start because they never understood or cared about the origin of the war, about the geography or the history involved. They don't understand why Ukrainians are fighting as well and as hard as they do. I'll never understand that. But until that changes, then I think Ukrainians are going to be very skeptical about any positive news that comes out of Washington.
Do you think it is likely right now that they will get the Tomahawk missiles that they've been asking for a while now?
I'm not going to even guess because it would be impossible to say with any confidence one way or the other.
And the last thing I'd like to talk with you about, last week, the Finnish Minister of Defense said that Russia's defeat in the war is essential for the Asian Pacific region as well, because, and I quote, China is watching. Do you believe that there will be a Chinese invasion of Taiwan in the very near future because of this administration's approach on the war in Ukraine?
Well, I think that the Chinese, I absolutely agree. The Chinese are watching. They're watching, and right now the Chinese are seeing that the United States and other are that we're kind of flexible on the idea of sovereignty. That if the administration is saying, "Come on, let Russia have Crimea, let Russia have the Donetsk and places like that for the sake of peace," that the principle of sovereignty is not one that the administration seems hard and fast about or willing to defend. And so Taiwan, Philippines, those places, will be concerned because the Chinese will see that. Now, I don't think that a Chinese invasion of Taiwan is imminent. In fact, I don't even think the Chinese want to do that. They probably believe that they could eventually get Taiwan during the time of President Xi without actually having to invade it by doing a variety of other things. And I'm not sure that this administration would be willing to get into an actual conflict over Taiwan. So that's these are the kind of calculations being made in Beijing and other places.
It was an honor. Thank you very much, General Hodges.
Okay, Adrian, nice talking to you. I like your bookshelf. That's impressive.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been collecting them for a while.